Welcome to Human Potential at Work, the show where we explore social impact, inclusion, and empowerment of everyone, including persons with disabilities. Your host is Debra, CEO of Rue Global Impact and co-founder and chairwoman of Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring billions of voices of persons with disabilities together. To join the global community and to donate to the cause, visit billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org. And now, on to the episode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Debra Rue, and I'm the CEO of Rue Global Impact and the executive chair of Billion Strong. I also am going to give a visual description. I am a white woman with gray and purple hair, green glasses, and a white dress on today. And I'm very excited. I'm really stoked about my guest today just because his work and his team's work are really having major impact. And so I'm very excited to introduce Rupert Roniger, which I think I said it wrong. And he told me you can butcher it if you want, but I didn't want to butcher it. But Rupert, welcome to the program. He is currently the CEO of Light of the World. And the work that they're doing, especially in Africa, is so amazing. So I'm really excited about talking about it. But Rupert, let me turn it over to you to introduce yourself and tell us the correct way to say your last name. And maybe you can give us a visual description as well.
Thank you. My name is Rupert Roniger. Yeah, my hair is a little bit gray. Meanwhile, as I'm 54, I have a blue shirt and white trousers. I wear glasses. Yeah, and I look like I'm a Caucasian man between 50 and 60.
That's right between. So a little closer to 50, though. So welcome to the program. Welcome to the program. Rupert, tell us more about Light of the World. In the first place, I love the name of that. I love your name. I love Light of the World because
Sorry, I have to correct you. It's light
in the world. So tell us more.
Yeah, it's light for the world.
For the world.
Light for the
I
world
like it
is
even better. Thank you.
Yeah, Light for the World is an organization, is an NGO rooted in Europe and in Africa. And we are passionate about disability inclusion. We believe that every human being has a right to access basic human rights like education, health, work. And we are really passionate to promote disability inclusion with a focus on Africa. We have been around for over 25 years, and we have been growing out of Vienna, Austria, where is our biggest office. But we have also offices in 5 other European cities, and we are rooted in Ethiopia, Burkina Faso, Mozambique, South Sudan, Uganda, and Kenya. And our 3 focus areas are eye health, disability inclusion in education, and in economic empowerment. And yeah, we are really passionate about that. And we are really passionate about this work. And what is very important to us that we combine in our work to promote the rights of persons with disabilities on an individual level. So we want to support that every human being and also people with disabilities in underprivileged regions can unleash their individual potential. And at the same time, we want to make a systemic impact. So we work with governments, with civil society organizations, with organizations of people with disabilities. And we believe with combining these 2 pivotal aspects, we have the biggest impact and a long-lasting impact. And this is what we see in our programs all over.
So Rupert, how did this get started? And it really is a great name. Light for the World is even a better name, I think, than the other one I came up with. But how did this get started? I mean, go Vienna and now Africa. What was the birth of the company, the organization?
The birth was a bit linked to a German-based organization called CBM that you might have heard of. But then it developed beyond with a stronger focus on human rights. And we were looking for a name that reflects our ambition to bring long-lasting change and light in a direct and also metaphoric way, to light up, to make bright the life of people with disabilities that are deprived of some basic human rights. So that's the background, and it developed out of a group of very engaged people in Austria and spread then beyond to the Czech Republic and other countries in Europe. So we are also present in Germany, in Switzerland, in the Netherlands, in UK, and then working in these African countries where it's really our focus. We have some presence in Asia, but our focus is on sub-Saharan Africa because we believe we need to really understand very well where we are strong and to use the synergies between the different areas. And for us, it's so important to be also a convener, to work with different stakeholders, and of course with organizations with people with disabilities, but also with mainstream civil society organizations, and of course with governments and even business, to really bring sustainable change towards disability inclusion.
Yeah, which is such a great point because I see often people just come in and say, "Oh, just do this as we did in our country," and then leave. And it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, can we talk about some of the ways you're supporting people in Africa? It really to really have true impact, which I know y'all have. It really you have to really engage, like you said, with all levels of society to make this really work.
Yeah.
And I love the work you're doing. So, will you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I would like to start with that we really link our work very strongly with the CRPD, with the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So we are also very proud that was a major achievement that we had together with others, that when the convention was in the making, that we were involved and advocated for, especially for an Article 32 of the convention, which is about international cooperation. And it's the first international convention on human rights that does not only apply to the countries that join, but also the international collaboration. And that's for us really key, is that in international collaboration, in international development, be it the United States or the UK or Germany or Australia, that this Article 32 of the convention oblige these countries and all other countries to make their programs disability inclusive on all levels. And that's for us a key entry point that we are focusing on when we then work on the ground in these countries. I'm happy to share some concrete examples if you want.
Please do share some
Yeah.
concrete examples.
If, for example, we really believe in the power of education in order to unleash the potential of everybody, and this is also a focus of ours. And if we look, for example, in Burkina Faso, we have been working for years to improve access to education, to inclusive education for people with disabilities. So there we did a lot to support partners to move from, in the past, there were very, very few special education schools in the capital, a school for the blind, a school for the deaf, and to support, to transform them into resource centers and to really go to the community level through community-based rehabilitation programs. We would then support on the grassroots level schools to reduce barriers for children with disabilities, to work with the community elders, to work with civil society organizations, with churches, because as we all know, often it's prejudice, it's stigma that's connected with disability. And we know that in addition to the impairment, like for example, a blind child would be dealing with and not able to read from normal print, would then come the stigma. So that's very important to work with the community on all levels. Second, then to work with the school and education system on all levels, because it doesn't help if the education policy is very inclusive, but the headmaster of the local school in a respective village says, we don't need these children in our school, or the parents of other schools' children don't like that. So it's really important to break that cycle and to work then also with the schools, teachers, and so on. And then we work all the levels up to the district, to the region, and to the Ministry of Health. So we are, for example, very proud that since 5 years in Burkina Faso, when it comes to the training of new primary school teachers, it's part of the curriculum that these teachers are also exposed to modules on disability inclusion. And yeah, in all those countries where we work, the national education policy has disability inclusion as a principle. So in some way, these countries are ahead of some countries in Europe and in Americas. And the advantage is if we work in different layers at the same time, the sustainability is much higher and also the impact. Because of course, in such countries, we are facing challenges. There are major economic challenges. You have sometimes with humanitarian crisis, with political turmoil. But the advantage is if we really build on we're raising the awareness with local policymakers on all levels, with the community leaders, then it's much more sustainable. And that then builds on. So if
I agree.
And what we also feel is then very important that we have role models in these communities where we also can give them more responsibility and they showcase how it works. When I now come, for example, to the area of economic empowerment, where we see this is really key in the countries in sub-Saharan Africa where we work, because there is no social security that is comparable to the US or to Austria or Germany. So economic empowerment is existential, is pivotal, and of course it's also important for the self-confidence. So we engage a lot in order to enhance access to livelihood, access to entrepreneurship, and access to employment. But this is of course a long path. It also needs to invest in education. And maybe I would like to share with you a really innovative and great model that we have developed, or my colleagues have developed, mainly in Uganda, but also beyond, that we call disability inclusion facilitators model. So because we had already in the past developed and worked like other organizations with the model of community-based rehabilitation, where you don't send the children, for example, to a regional capital in a boarding school, but you train local people to go to the communities and from household to household, which is a huge advantage because those people speak the language of the people and know the cultural background. And the next step that we developed in the past few years was to get people with disabilities, young people with disabilities involved and to train them to become disability inclusion facilitators. And this is really a great concept. It's of course challenging. It's of course very challenging because very often access to education is very limited to those people, but it's amazing the impact because as we know, often also the self-confidence and the ability to express and to speak up for themselves is very limited. And of course, we follow the principle, nothing about us without us. We want people with disabilities to speak up for themselves. And that's not enough to do that on the national level to support the national umbrella organization of persons with disabilities. That's important, but we need to go to the regional level and to the grassroots level. And what we are doing, that we select young people with disabilities who have the potential to move towards becoming role models. We train them how to express themselves, how to advocate, how to go out to the communities. And I saw it in the past few years and also last week in Uganda, the impact is tremendous. It's the impact on these young people with disabilities. The young deaf lady that I met, the blind man, it's so transformed because they have been subject to so much stigmatization and discrimination, and they would have never be able to speak directly to a community leader, to a head of an organization. And as we empower them, and then they go out themselves to address even the CEO of a company or the mayor of a town or of a village, and talk about the issue of disability inclusion, talk about the potential that people with disabilities have and that is missed out if they're not included. And then they do offer, for example, disability sensitization trainings as an entry point. And then we offer that we support them, these organizations, to become more disability inclusive, to start maybe with internships and then place people with disabilities. And that works both, like in Uganda, there's a company called Solar Now, and they have now deaf people as accountants, and it's all levels. And we partner with the biggest bank in Uganda, and the CEO, a great lady, she's promised within 5 years, she wants 10% of her staff and management to be people with disabilities. And these are successes that are so encouraging, and it's amazing to see that.
I agree. I agree. And Rupert, why is it so important to really focus on the culture and the people themselves as opposed to we're all experts, we'll just come in there and tell y'all what to do?
Yeah, because I think you will agree that the
Mm.
biggest barrier to inclusion, according to what I have learned in the past 27 years, the biggest barrier is the mindset of people. There are still too many people around who feel like, oh, this person has a disability, and they look at the disability and not at the abilities. And everybody has abilities. And maybe you have once met a former colleague of mine and a good friend, Yetne Bershnikussi. She's a human rights expert and she received the Right Livelihood Award. And I was able
Yes.
to accompany her. And she used to say, I have one disability, I'm blind, and I have 99 abilities. Don't judge me according to my one disability. And I think that's really the key. And a lot of our societies are very much focused on looking at the deficiencies and not at the capabilities. And this is very much linked to the culture. And of course, there's a lot of misunderstanding and missing knowledge. I can take an example also from a little bit near to the medical field where stigma can come in. I remember in Burkina Faso, there are some areas where epilepsy is a problem. But if people don't know about it and they see a seizure, even it happens that there is something really wrong with this family and I can get the disease if I come close to them. So you need to raise the awareness and then only you can come in with the medication and the disabled child can go to school and continue. And this doesn't work top down. So that's really in every society, you have to look at who are on the grassroots level. And in our African partner countries, there are, for example, very often important community leaders, but you also have women groups, you have the religious groups, and you have to really to work with those. And we work, of course, with the Christians and with the Muslims and with all groups. And for us, also a key principle since 25 years, we don't send white experts into our projects. So we really want to empower people from the global south to work with their peers. And that really makes a huge difference, we believe.
Especially right now, I think we have to be very deliberate in the things that we're doing right now. And I say that a lot, and sometimes people get a little aggravated, but it really is true. And I also love that you were supporting young leaders with disabilities so they can find their path. One thing I've told you a little bit about Billion Strong, but one thing Dr. Lamondre Pugh said to me, which I would have gotten there, but I hadn't thought of it yet, was it is important to teach society about our community and the value that we add to the community. And for people to understand, you might already be part of our community and you don't even realize it, or but it's not meant as a threat. It's just about being a human being. But one thing he said that I hadn't thought of yet was that, but we also have to convince the individual with a disability that they're not broken when they've been told their whole life, especially, and I don't care what country you're in. Here in the United States, we tell people with disabilities are broken all the time. We tell them, and we tell them
Yeah.
by the actions that we do. We tell them by not having accessible websites, not having
Yeah.
churches that they can go into. We tell them they are not valuable. And so he said two things we want to help society learn it. We want to certainly brag about all the stuff that's already being done that we can build upon, but we also need to convince them, which the work you're doing, that they are the light of the world and they can add so much value
Yeah.
and they were made this way on
Yeah.
purpose. Go live your best life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would like to add, it's not only about convincing, which I think is rather on the rational level, because if you have faced so much discrimination, we need to walk the talk and we need to lead by example and it needs role models. And of course, that's really that struck me when I entered this field of work almost 27 years ago. That the one thing is the impairment, but the other thing is the barriers that the society has towards people with disabilities. And the third thing is that then the barriers that may develop in an individual person because they lose self-confidence and they don't dare to speak up and then they they don't take their things in their own hands. And that's really important to turn that around. And that's for me so interesting, Debra, that once you can break the cycle, and there's also some scientific research, for example, from our chair, Professor Tom Shakespeare from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, who is a person with disabilities himself, about success of persons with disabilities in Africa. He did some research in a couple of countries. Ordinary people with disabilities who are successful in life, like being a teacher, being a mother, being whatever, a carpenter. And he researched on, and this mirrors with my personal experience, that if you can turn that around, the frustration to the positive, overcoming a barrier, then we learn that people with disabilities, even in marginalized communities, develop an enormous resilience so that they sometimes really outperform many others. Because if you manage one barrier and the other barrier, and then you gain confidence, and that's so amazing. And I saw that last week in Uganda and 2 weeks ago in South Sudan, where I met some of these young people. And they're working as disability inclusion facilitators. And then you talk about them, what their background is. And in addition, the lady had, and in addition, I'm growing rabbits to have some income. And I'm paying school fees for 2 younger sisters. And I'm so proud about that. And in a few months, I will marry. And this is also very important. So then you see, they made it. And she has ambitions. And she said, Rupert, you as CEO now, do you have any advice? In 10 years, I also want to lead a civil society organization. What advice can you give me?
Oh, I love that. Rupert, I want to talk about you being the CEO and what's happening coming up in your life. But before we go there, you've already talked a little bit about this. And I love the comment you made about not sending white people in just because but why is it so important to have role models that look like us or have the same type of lived experiences that we have?
I think it's especially important for these marginalized communities because they have faced so much discrimination that often their self-confidence has a crack, their self-confidence is not intact, and it needs to be built up. And that's, if I can imagine, this person 10 years ago was in a similar situation than myself. She was also living in a village. She was also facing exclusion, and she made it to go to primary school. She made it maybe to secondary school. And now she even has a master's degree and is a respected person in that country. I think then you can identify with and follow these aspirations because, you're coming from a comparable.
Yes, well said. And I know I apologize to the audience. We do have a little delays, but thank you for being patient with technology. So just part of it. Rupert, can you still hear me?
You're frozen for me.
Rupert, why do you think having role models that look like us or have the same lived experiences as us matters to these younger people or really to everyone?
I think that's particularly important as people with disabilities in marginalized communities have faced so much discrimination that often they would lose their self-confidence and they don't believe in their capabilities and abilities. And if there's somebody from far away who is a white educated person tells them what to do, that's not so relevant. It's much more relevant if they meet a woman from a similar background, from a similar village, who can tell them, I was in a similar situation. When I was 10, I was discriminated in school. I made it to primary school. I made it to secondary school, and finally even to university maybe. And now I'm talking with community leaders, and you can make it as well. And I can even maybe contribute to my family. I earn my living. I can support my siblings. So that's really relevant, where you can identify with, if she made it, maybe I can make it as well. And maybe I can do even more. And so I think that's also what I experience again and again. And I also saw in my last visits to Uganda, South Sudan, Burkina Faso a few weeks ago. So that's really pivotal that we allow role models to inspire others.
I totally agree. Very well said. I know that you have been the CEO of Light for the World for 20, 25 years, but you have actually decided to step down. And so I'm curious what's next for you, but also for the organization.
Yeah, I was very much privileged to, over the past, tomorrow it will be 27 years, to engage for this wonderful cause and to work with such fantastic partners in different countries. It was so enriching also for me. Yes, it was hard work, but yes, it was really inspiring and wonderful. And I had never planned to do it for such a long time, and it evolved and evolved. But at some point, I came to the conclusion I want to make space for something new, and I want that this organization develops further. And therefore, I've decided to step down. And I'm very happy that in August, my successor, a female successor with lots and lots of experiences in Africa, will come in. And Marion Lisa, she will continue to lead the organization into the next phase with such a tremendous and amazing team based in 6 countries in sub-Saharan Africa and 6 countries in Europe. And yeah, the organization will continue to develop. We want to be a relevant actor, a strong civil society organization based in Europe and based in sub-Saharan Africa, advocating, influencing, being an expert, offering expertise to others, implementing innovative pilot initiatives, and very important to collaborate with the disability movement, to collaborate with civil society, and to showcase how inclusion can work. And this is what we will continue in iHealth, in education, in work. And also, unfortunately, it's also important in humanitarian situations, in emergency situations, to make sure that people with disabilities are not forgotten. So the organization will move on. I will stay connected and will help from behind the scenes wherever it's necessary. But I think that will go very well. And I personally, I'm not yet in the age to retire. I'm 54, but I'm in a very privileged situation. And I strongly believe that that our world and an inclusive world needs, yes, we need the governments that do the right stuff. We need businesses that employ people with disabilities, and we need civil society. And I have quite some experience in building up, in leading, in developing civil society organization myself and working with leaders over more than 25 years. And I want to offer this expertise to others, and the skills and the attitude that I have, I will offer to maybe coach civil society leaders, organizations of persons with disabilities and their leaders. So in this way to contribute in the future. And this is my plan, and I'll see how that develops. And I'm already working with half a dozen of leaders from the disability movement in different countries. And it's really amazing to see on the very individual level. It's really wonderful to work with these young leaders from the disability movement and to provide them with a space for self-reflection, to develop their leadership skills, and to develop their organizations. And then finally, to ensure that there's even more impact for disability inclusion. And this is what I'm striving for. And I'm looking forward to collaboration, whoever is interested in that.
We're interested. So I'll be talking to you about that. Definitely Rue Global Impact's interested in, so is Billion Strong. And because, like you said, you bring so much talent to the industry and you can help grow other leaders, which I appreciate. Rupert, what can our community? I have a lot of corporate representatives that watch this. It's a very global show. What can our community do to get behind Light for the World? What can we do to help to take y'all to the next level?
Please get in touch. If you want to work directly with us, get in touch with me and my colleagues in our partner countries or in Europe. And we have it's in our DNA to convene, to work together with others. That's really important to us. And either to work directly with us or we connect you with partners, because we really love to see also companies across the world to engage for a more inclusive society, especially for education and economic empowerment. And because we can offer also a lot of to share our experiences or to link you with experienced partners that made it happen. It was so inspiring last week in Uganda, on the one hand, to sit on the grassroots level with a group of 21 women on the floor who develop very basic entrepreneurship livelihood skills, and 2 days later to sit with the CEO of the biggest bank of Uganda, and she had makes a bold statement: we have made it possible in the past years that we have 50% female leadership in the organization. And when I stepped down as the CEO in 6 years, she said, I want that 10% of our team members and 10% of our managers are people with disabilities. So what we now do is to support her with strong people with disabilities to support them to become more disability inclusive. But the same applies to partners like companies in the Americas, in Europe. And of course, we also need funding for our work, no doubt about that. So that's also welcome. If somebody thinks about philanthropic investments, we can offer their very also concrete figures and impact. But also if it's just you want to link up, that would be very much welcome, because it's about getting people together, convening and developing alliances. So please contact me.
I agree. And
Please get in touch with us. And,
go ahead,
and of
Rupert.
course, also, even if you don't work directly with us, we have a lot of resources that we can offer, that we can share with you.
So, Rupert, how do people find out about the organization? What is the website? I know you're on social media, but tell people how they can find out
Yeah,
more
of
about
course.
the
One entry
organization.
point is our website, www.light-4-the-world.org. It's the easiest way, but of course you find it also on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, and approach any of our, that's probably the best. If you come across on social media one of our team members, just approach them, and maybe you meet us at a conference. We just were talking about the Zero Project Conference, the Conference of State Parties, and even more on the ground. Of course, you can also approach me directly.
And Rupert, I didn't tell you I was going to say this, but I think an opportunity we also have here, especially if you are a corporate representative looking for ways to support our community, they have done such amazing work in Africa in 6 countries and in the 6 countries in Europe. But these programs could be taken into
Yes.
other developing parts of the world, and you could help fund it with Rupert. Yeah, and they would bring in the right partners. So maybe they're not just going to jump to Central America, but they know how to take their programs and create and work with the partners there. So I would also suggest anybody that's
Yeah.
thinking of wanting to have a positive impact for our community, this is one really good way to do it. They've already honed these programs. They're already having success. And then also, we should look at who their success stories are, because these are amazing employees for multinational corporations.
Exactly, I agree.
So just
I agree,
reminding
and
you
I
that.
want to add, for example, a concrete example that we have met last week in Uganda. A bunch of people. We have a program, an alliance, a program that is supported by the International Fund for Agriculture and Development, and it's in collaboration with ILO, the International Labour Organization. So we take some of the learnings from Uganda, and we have now people from other countries, from Mozambique, from India, and from Burkina Faso, and from Malawi. And people from these 5 countries, while we are talking here, they are in rural areas in Uganda, and look at the experience there, and together discuss what we can learn from that, and how can we take it to the next level. And this concept of diversity, disability inclusion facilitators has really gained traction, and it's now also shared in other regions.
Very exciting. Congratulations. So, Rupert, we wish you great luck in your next chapter, and we wish the new CEO wonderful luck. I think she actually reached out to me. So I was like, oh, or somebody from your organization reached out to me. But it's very exciting to see the impact that you've had. So, congratulations on that, Rupert. And one more time, give the URL of the
It's
website.
light-for-the-world.org. So light minus the minus light, sorry, light minus 4 minus the minus world.org. Please visit our webpage or just enter in. Yeah.
It's easier to type.
Enter Light for the World in Google, and you may add my name, Rupert, or you may add Ethiopia, Burkina Faso. You will find us. Thank you very much, Debra.
Yes, yes. We wish you great success. Yes. And Rupert, maybe you'll come back on when you're a consultant and tell us about the next chapter of your life too. So we would love to track what you're doing. So
Thank you for giving me
Rupert.
the space, Debra. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
You've been listening to Human Potential at Work. To learn more about Rue Global Impact, visit rueglobal.com. And to learn more about Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring the billions of voices of persons with disabilities together, you can join the global community and donate at billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org.